Are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. As you know, I'm Paul Adams from Branston Adams. We're here networking. Thank you to Mark, New Dawn Pubs in the Castle. Said to Mark, we had 4 drop out yesterday and a 4 this morning with COVID. So it's on video, so I'll catch up with it. I have the pleasure of being joined by this young lady this morning. I'll get her to introduce herself in a second. It's got to be the best part of 25 years I've known you. And I bore these people with cricket regularly, so let's sort of try and relate what we do to normality. So, who are you?
So, my name's Emma. I'm actually local. I live in Frimley, but work in Southampton for the Hampshire Cricket Board. Originally, I was a nurse. I was a nurse at Frimley Park Hospital for 30 years. I was a cancer nurse, head and neck cancer. But sport has always been a big part of my life. And I knew that when I had children, I wanted to get them involved in sport. The local schools that we sent them to weren't really set up for sport, so I went and interviewed the head teacher at my son's infant school and said, okay, my son can come to your school if I can come in and coach cricket and rugby. She said yes. So I coached in all of my children's schools until well after they left, and was coaching in a voluntary capacity for Hampshire, the Hampshire Cricket Board. I did my coaching badges. I was at Yateley, which is where I met Paul, and set up the women and girls section there, and did all my coaching badges. Became a coach tutor, a qualified stage 3 umpire. I'm a bit unique. There aren't many mums, coaches, umpires, tutors in the country. I'm probably the only one. But I think it gives me a unique perspective on the sport and how it affects certainly youngsters. Do you want me to keep going? Because I've got one other thing I can say.
Go on.
Okay, so I suppose for me, I've got a son and a daughter. I've got an older son and my daughter is 3 years younger. And so she followed him in his pathway.
She's better than he is. And you can quote me on that.
I think he would probably agree. But they've both done the club, the school club, district, which is between club and county, and the county pathway, although my son not for very long. And I was motivated to get involved with women and girls cricket for 3 reasons, really. Firstly, my daughter kept saying, well, why can't I? Ike's doing this, so why can't I? Why do I have to play softball cricket? Why don't I have a shirt and a cap for playing district cricket? Why? So she was quite a big motivator for me. And then there's a young man that both Paul and I know from our club, and really lovely young man, a bit of a cricket badger, loves stats, the sort of guy who'll go on and play cricket or, find out how many runs whichever player's got. And he turned around to me once and he said, Emma, how does our coach know that I'm not an opening bat? Because I'm never given the opportunity. And that's really stayed with me throughout my coaching career. How do you know if you've never been given that chance? And then thirdly, my son was at university and he hadn't been there very long, and he rang me at 4 a.m. To say, Mum, you've got to ring Charlotte Edwards, who I've worked with for many years, and she was the England ladies captain, for those of you that don't know, for 16 years. And she said, you've got to ring her because there's a girl at our university who's the partner of the cricket team captain, yeah, and she's not allowed to play because she's female. Because our university only has 1 cricket team, and she's not allowed to play, and these are the rules. So I didn't ring Lottie, I actually rang Claire Connor, who is now director of the ECB. And it did take 2 years, but eventually we got that changed. And those 3 things from those 3 young people have really motivated me to do what I do today, and to go out and try and change things for these youngsters.
Let's explore that a little bit more, because I take a lot of what I learn into cricket into business, because there are a lot of life skills in it, including equality. Now, women first played... Actually, any idea when the first recorded women's cricket match is? Do you know this?
It's in the 1800s, wasn't it?
No to that and no to this as well.
1700?
1745.
Yeah.
Well, women were always playing cricket before men, and that's where they think underarm bowling came from. So you might know my next question. This is the wrong way around, isn't it, really? When did the ECB, which stands for the England and Wales Cricket Board, take over the administration of women cricket?
I should know this because I've just written it down in a presentation I'm going to do, but I can't remember.
1796 probably. And they sort of get away with it.
1970.
You're closest. I think it was 1980 or thereabouts. So up to that point, women and girls were just told, you're on your own. No, there was no inclusivity. It wasn't together. So my son played the same. We had a very good year at Yateley, and that my son and Emerson were the same age. We spent a lot of time together, 2 or 3 years.
We did.
National finals 3 times out of 4 years. And then Emma started doing the girls, and the coaching of the girls was woeful. There's no other word for it. And Emma said to one day, Paul, can you help with the girls? So I went to help with the girls. And you suddenly discover that there's one team ranging from about 6 to 16, which makes running the game impossible. Well, we did it. So how many girls have we got now in Hampshire and clubs? Because we started with a handful, which you dragged in.
Yeah, we've got, so originally there are, you could probably count the number on one hand of teams in the Hampshire Cricket League. So these are hardball cricket teams. We now have nearly 30. Some clubs have 2, one club has 3. So certainly from a hardball cricket, we've got 40 softball women's teams in Hampshire, and then we've got, I've just been filling this in for my KPIs, it's about 100 girls teams in Hampshire. So there are an awful lot, and it has grown massively, mostly, I have to say, through the work of my boss, Mike Pollard at the Hampshire Cricket Board. He has pushed and pushed and pushed, partly with me getting a stroppy in the background and saying that this is what's required, but he's had the courage to go out and take on the battle as well. And it has been a battle, you know, I don't want to sort of sweeten it in any way. And it is still a battle, and it's 2023, and I suppose for me, not having been able to play cricket when I was growing up, because I was a girl, I wasn't allowed to play rugby, and I wasn't allowed to play football. I had to go and ride horses, which was great, I love horses, play hockey. Wouldn't say that's my the sport that I would have chosen. And you kind of hope that there would have been a more parity by now. I certainly had hoped when I had a daughter. I wasn't expecting a daughter. I had a son first. I'm not a Barbie sort of person. I don't know whether you can guess, but I was kind of expecting to have sons and have a sevens team, and you know, that was the way my life was going to go. But I had a daughter, and luckily she's absolutely mad on sport as well. But I kind of expected that by the time she got to the age where she'd be playing sport, that it would be more equal. And although there's a lot in the news and a lot of lovely publicity around some of the really good stuff that's happening, there's still quite a way to go. I'm not a rabid feminist. I need to put that out there now. I'm not. I'm really lucky. I've got a fabulous husband at home who does all the accounts, and you know, we share things. But I still think there needs to be equality of opportunity, and I think that's been a bit of a driver.
That's not just girls, is it? I mean, because you're doing stuff with Rwanda and Cricket Without Boundaries. You're doing quite a lot in. I know, I coached disability cricket in the past. I went into several of the schools in Yateley, and they can't join in because they're disabled. And I won't tell you the language I used with the headmaster at the time, but no, they did join in. And one of the beauties of cricket is you can adapt it. And we could all go out on the green now and play cricket, and we would make sure that everybody got a bat and bowl field, had a good time, and Mark might even give us a pint afterwards if we were lucky. So tell us a little bit about the inclusivity stuff you're doing with Rwanda and generally
and also in the UK, so the Young Leaders course, we actually encourage, we have a softball disability girls team called the Adders, because the women's regional team was called the Southern Vipers, and we used to name all the girls' teams after different snakes, and they chose the names, and they chose adders, and they chose purple as their kit, and so we've had the girls from that team attend our course and are part of our Champions Young Leaders programme, and we're also very involved with the England visually impaired team, and we play them annually. I think they're one up at the moment on us, and we have to wear distortion specs, so the girls come and have a go at that, and then we've been able to take those skills out to Rwanda, where they are still struggling a fair bit with how to include children and young adults with disabilities, but yeah, I mean, it's very much open to all. I think I've made a conscious decision with the Young Leaders programme in the UK to make it about girls with potential rather than girls that are already there and are shiny finished products, very popular, have great communication skills. We work a lot with children, or I encourage children to get involved with the programme that perhaps are on the autistic spectrum or struggle at school, who've been bullied. The young lady who is the first or the youngest ever international umpire, who's one of ours, Scarlett, and there's a picture of her at Lord's and a picture of her. She went back to Rwanda on her own and umpired there at 18, and she's been very badly bullied. She's gone through lots of different schools. We've got children who've got massive communication problems, so we really involve those children and bring the best out of them, and we've tried to do the same in Rwanda as well. So the message very much, it doesn't matter who you are, cricket is a game for you, and whether you're going to be a player or whether you can score or umpire, or we've got our groundies there. We've got girls that we had 10 girls who went on the level 1 groundsmanship course, and they go and help their club, which is fantastic because you get to go on the mower and the roller and all the equipment, which is fabulous.
Assuming health and safety lets you.
I think you have to be 13. And so we're working with Rwanda and getting them to do the same. So they've got girls out there who are working at the Gahanga National Stadium. There are 2 grounds in Rwanda, Gahanga, which was built by Cricket Builds Hope, and my daughter was actually out in Rwanda when that was opened by Paul Kagame, the president of Rwanda, and the IRPC, which is based at one of their technical colleges, which is mostly where we played. So it's about, again, giving opportunities and showing possibility. You don't know, as George said, when he was 12, you don't know what you're going to be good at, what you might enjoy until you've had the opportunity to try things. So, yeah.
Well, the interesting thing about the ladies' team in Rwanda is they qualified for the World Cup.
Brilliant.
They did, and out of the team that went to the Under-19 T20 World Cup, 5 of those were from our project, and 9 are in the full Rwanda squad. So Giselle there, in the last little video, she started at 9. Her mum is a single mum to 5. They lived in an animal shed, and cricket has given her the opportunity to educate not only herself and her 3 sisters, her brother's off in the army, but they've moved into the house next door and renovated it, and we were invited to lunch, and they have a tap in the yard, which they don't have to go out and collect water every day. And it's, again, changing perceptions. I think there's still quite a gender divide out there, so girls aren't expected to go and play cricket and provide for their families that way. And when we had the grand opening of the Cricket Academy that we support, there were some parents that stood up and gave testimony to show how they weren't happy about their daughters playing cricket, but what a change it's made to them and their families. So, you know, it's a bit trite, isn't it, saying sport changes lives, but it's not just sport. Lots of things change lives. Art can change lives, music can change lives, but in this case it's been really positive for us. And it's given our girls an opportunity to give back. I think I'm very conscious about how privileged the girls are in Hampshire. You know, they're given fantastic coaching in clubs where people volunteer and give them a lot. They train in great facilities. It's not a sport that is cheap, so they're given a lot from their parents who ferry them around the country. So it's an opportunity for them to say, well, actually, yes, you know, let's create a partnership. And it is very much a partnership. It isn't, you know, when we went out there, it isn't great white saviours coming into Rwanda to bring lots of stuff. It was us. We gained as much, if not more, from our trip, from the guys and how they operate in Rwanda and their outlook on life, and the way they coach, than we ever took out there.
Well, obviously you played them 3 times. How many games did you win?
We lost all 3 games to Rwanda A, which was incredibly embarrassing.
Shows
Yeah.
you've done a good job.
Yeah.
How controversial can we get? Now, obviously in the UK, we have this big divide, and you probably guess where I'm going, where we have those who go to state schools and those who go to private education. And you mentioned Claire Connor, and I know this is a big thing for her, trying to get money back into state schools. Are we doing anything in Hampshire to try and level that playing field? Or is this a completely unfair question?
No, absolutely nothing is off the table. So we are. The problem is that it's a bit like the government. There's lots of quangos involved. So there's the ECB, and then there are other organisations that bring money into cricket, and that money is allocated. So there's an organisation called Chance to Shine, which I think originally was the charity arm of the ECB, and they provide each county board with money. You have to you're given an X amount of money, and that is primarily for state schools. It is a little bit of a misnomer because of Chance to Shine at primary schools. Cricket has actually been ahead of the game from prep schools because rounders was the chosen sport in the UK for girls. So I'm talking from a girl's perspective, although Chance to Shine is boys and girls. And it's meant that because we have run cricket competitions and offered free coaching in state schools for children, they've had a better standard of cricket up until the age of 11 than the children that are in prep schools. Obviously it changes when you get to senior school, but girls only senior schools, private schools have been pretty rubbish. I can say that. My daughter was at Farnborough Hill. Not good at all. However, because Rounders is now off the GCSE curriculum and cricket has come onto the GCSE curriculum, all schools have changed to cricket. And so there is starting to be a bigger gap. So there is this chunk of money, and we work very hard with state schools. It's a lot easier for primary schools because they tend to be a little bit more flexible with their curriculum. So you can go in and spend a day and hit most of the children in that school. It's harder with state schools, senior schools, because they have a very fixed curriculum run by fixed teachers. But we do have money. It's getting into the schools. We offer free coaching, free competitions, free kit. That's part of my remit. But trying to get the schools to take that up is really tough. And I don't know whether that's partly because a lot of girls' sport in schools is run by female teachers and they want to do what they know. But we offer free coaching courses, we offer free umpiring courses, we offer free scoring courses. And sometimes it's just about getting past the receptionists, and that's quite hard. But there is a lot of opportunity out there for state schools. Scarlett umpired at Lord's for the first time. I went up to watch her, and she was umpiring the MCC Foundation finals, and that's a state school competition, and the standard of cricket was very high. So yes, there is a divide. I'm not sure the current programme is fit for purpose, really. I think it is for primary schools. The state school programme needs a lot of work. I'm charged with delivering that, and it's not easy. I don't think they've quite got the model right. We haven't been asked our views.
Well, yes,
Hopefully it will change.
we've had this wonderful report from the ECB, which probably 99.9% of the cricketing population haven't read. So I don't expect anybody here to have read it. So the ECB are taking action. Is it the right action? Is it focused at ground roots enough? Or
So I've been told to refer everybody to our communications officer.
Someone's had the PR training.
Well, actually, not me. I personally think it's too little too late. From a personal perspective, from things that I have witnessed, I think the report goes some way. I think the report needs to go further, and I think, unfortunately, because some of the people involved in the report aren't cricketers, they've slightly misunderstood certain aspects. So one of the things that they suggested was that all county from under 14 shouldn't happen anymore. So county cricket shouldn't happen for kids. Kids love county cricket. You know, they love being able to represent their county like you would your school. You know, you put on your shirt. It's absolutely wonderful experience for them, and it teaches them an awful lot about sport and about success and about failure, which is unfortunately part of life. And one of the report's recommendations is that county cricket isn't run, but the county coaches should then go and work in state schools during the day. The trouble with that is that I was a county coach up until last year, and I have a job, and pretty much all county coaches do it in their spare time. It's something that you do as an added extra because you enjoy it, you've got the skills and the knowledge to go out and pass that on. So it isn't feasible, and I think that's slightly unfortunate. I think for me, when I was nursing, the best sisters in the hospital were the ones that once a week rolled up their sleeves, came onto the wards, worked with the patients, worked with the staff, saw what was going on and could really understand the issues. I would like to see the people that make the decisions in Hampshire, seeing the people who work in Hampshire, what we're doing, what the issues are, because the issues are different in Hampshire than they are in Surrey, than they are in Birmingham, than they are in London, in Yorkshire. And I think to be a good manager and to deploy your resources most effectively, you need to be on the ground sometimes and seeing what's going on. And I think Paul would say that at work. I think that's the same for businesses. You can't be in your ivory tower. You have to be seeing what's going on to understand and make a difference and to change things and to make people. You can't be effective if you don't feel if you're not understood, I think.
It's interesting because obviously we're sat here in Surrey.
Of course, because I'm Surrey.
You've come across the boundary,
Yeah.
and I know more about Surrey cricket than you probably do. And Surrey is very privileged compared to Hampshire. It has more money, it has more resources, has more defined pathways. And Berkshire, on the other hand, probably has less resources, but has a more defined pathway, and all the coaches get involved. And there's one or two clubs beat Berkshire, and Hampshire's sort of somewhere in the middle. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, probably. I mean, Surrey obviously has the London boundaries have changed, and London sort of swallowing it up parts of Surrey, which is why they get an awful lot of more resources. But we're all funded by the ECB and given targets to reach. And I think sometimes it's a little bit prescriptive. I think if you're employed to do a job and given the money to do that job, sometimes things work better if you're allowed free rein to do that to the best of your ability. Obviously, as long as you're reaching your targets. But I think,
So some of the targets are a little bit arbitrary. It's probably a fair thing to say. I can say more than Emma can because she's contracted. Yeah. Somebody once said to me, Paul, if you never coach cricket again, would you care? And I'd care, but I would do other things. And I guess that brings me on to what have you learnt? Because obviously you were a nurse. You know, our kids grew up together. And you've gone into this, at the time when you started, very male-dominated sport and made a huge difference. So what sort of takeaways have you got that you've learnt?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think the thing I learnt, the guiding principles that I've had, I think, through both nursing and sport have come from my parents. My dad worked for victim support. My mum was a Samaritan for 25 years. And I think my dad was a Scot and was never scared of sticking up for what he believed. And I think again, going back to those 3 little things that those children said to me, I think not being scared of trying to do what's right. I think the NHS is quite different. It's very clear cut. It's a bit like being in the forces, because you know that if you're late, you're going to get penalised. You're going to get into trouble. You can't go in with a tongue stud. You can't go in with laddered tights. It's all quite prescriptive, and I quite enjoyed that environment. I was massively frustrated and was often sitting outside the chief executive's office complaining because my patients didn't have blankets, or there weren't enough staff, or it was, but I've found the change into an environment where people generally don't want to put their head above the parapet, quite tough, and I'm not very good at accepting that, and perhaps I need to find more of a balance. I don't know. Have I learned anything from... I just trust my gut, I think, to do what I think is right. And if, when the day comes and I find that I'm knocking on heaven's door and I've done the wrong thing, then at least I guess I can say I've tried my best. But I think that's all you can do.
And that's very much a cricket thing, because cricket's a team sport and teams are made up of individuals. So this inclusivity thing I talk about a lot comes down to not only the individual team members and the wider things. And the thing I find I coach a lot is if you've done your best, no one can criticise you. They might try to, but they've got nothing to stand on.
Yeah, and I think that was very much, so I did county girls. Girls are very different to boys. I was telling Tom earlier, boys come into sport thinking that they're already going to be playing for England, so they're really tough to coach. And I was quite glad to leave that behind and move into girls. Girls don't expect anything. They've got no confidence. They might do in female-only sports, but in male-dominated sports, they have no confidence. So they're a joy to coach, and there's very little arrogance. And so they are an absolute pleasure. But we had one main rule. I coached county under-11s and county under-13s for about 15 years. And our rule was you never say sorry, because if you've tried your best, then there's nothing to be sorry for. But girls and women generally, if you're coaching them in something new, it's a constant. Oh, I'm sorry, and they mishit the ball. I'm sorry, I'm not bowled. I bowled wide. I'm sorry. And so we stopped that and we got rid of sorry, because all we want is for you to do your best.
Seems to be the very British disease to say sorry.
It is, and I do it as well. And I'll say sorry for
I'm
things.
sorry, I can't meet you.
Yeah, yeah.
Also,
Or I walk
banned
into
in
the...
the Ryder Cup, by the way. If you heard this in the Europe team, they said, I don't want to hear the word sorry. All week.
Yeah.
When you're playing the team games, you do your best, that's it.
Yeah, they just replaced sorry with I'll bugger.
That's fine.
Can't bring that into a 13 girls cricket.
Confidence is one step away from arrogance.
No, I think that's true enough.
I look at it as a clock face. There's a very fine line between that arrogance, which is ugly, and confidence, which is charming.
Yeah.
And one of my questions was, how do you manage that? How do you keep them on the right side?
I'm really strict. I come from
Call back.
a background where I had very strict parents. I brought my children up. We had a lot of fun, and they were allowed to do a huge amount of stuff that other children weren't allowed to do. But we had very clear boundaries, and I have always coached in that way as well. And so the children know that if you don't turn up to training, if you are late, then you won't be selected for the next match. If you muck around in training, I stop talking until you start listening. If you are, very cocky, then I will use you to demo, and perhaps you will see that, you're not quite as good as you expect. We do it in a way that doesn't damage their self-esteem, in the sense that, you're there to grow players. You're not there to make them unhappy or lack confidence or turn them away from sport, and it is a fine balance. And I've made mistakes, but I suppose I've been doing it now since, for cricket, I started coaching in 2002, and I have my daughter who up until recently coached with me, and that was great because she was a great foil, because she's younger, nearer to their age. She's actually sometimes a lot tougher than I am. But that's helped, and that's really worked, given me an opportunity to see things. As you grow older, you forget, don't you? So it is a balance. I wouldn't say I got it right every time. I hope I'm honest enough to go back if I have got it wrong. And
Again, it's another business analogy.
It is. It crosses over business a lot.
Yeah.
And Emma's seen me coach on a number of occasions. And normally when it's windy, wind seems to affect girls more than boys. I'm not sure why. They chatty. And Emma's seen this. They end up with a lot of running drills when they're chatty. And then they stop being quite so chatty. And it's this question of balance of getting what you want to get across to them taking it, and then having the ability to absorb it. And there's a lot of work lessons in there, because you're trying to coach the individual, and we haven't even got on trying to mould them into a team. Let alone, you need X number of bowlers, X number of batters, a wicketkeeper, and you need to be in the right places. Whole set of different challenges. And it is very much like a working environment.
I've been managed very, very badly in my career. I was managed very badly at work. Had some really difficult situations. My dad died, and I was asked by my boss, told by my boss a week later that I should be over it. And I lost my first baby, and as I was going down to theatre, my manager came over to me and said, "So you'll be back at work tomorrow." And it was a late loss. I think I only had one decent manager in my 30 years at Frimley Park, and I wouldn't say management is the forte. They're very nice, but I wouldn't say they're always very strong, and I think it gives you, that sort of experience gives you an opportunity to say, okay, well, I can see where I don't want to be, but this is what I want to be. And with the young leaders, I tell them that the most important thing you can do as a coach is to experience as many different coaches as possible, and to pull little bits out and make your own toolkit and be your own person, your own coach, because you'll find that this coach does this really well. Okay, brilliant, I like that. And then this coach does this really well, so I'll take that. This coach, bits I don't like, so I'm not going to. No, I'm not. I'm pointing over there. And it's just life, isn't it? You're learning by experiencing, and
You often learn more by your mistakes than you do from your successes. It's how you manage that, which is really what determines a person. You mentioned about the progression of cricket within Hampshire, and particularly for women runners game. Paul alluded to the sort of funding side. How different is Hampshire set up to the kind of hardcore cricket counties like Yorkshire?
It's quite interesting. I don't know whether it's the case now, but I was speaking to one of the Yorkshire coaches a few years ago, and interestingly, they had one sponsor who sponsored their first 11, their second 11, their male academy, their female team, all the junior stuff, as well as the ground. And we all went, wow, that's amazing. What a fantastic setup. I don't know whether that's still the case. Certainly it's quite difficult in Hampshire because we have three main organisations. So we have Hampshire County Cricket. They are in charge of the men's setup, the men's academy. There's the Hampshire Cricket Board, and we've always been traditionally doing the recreational side. We used to run the boys and girls county setup. We gave the boys county setup and the boys district setup to Hampshire Cricket, and they've been managing that for a few years. We then gave the county girls setup to Hampshire Cricket, and they've been running that. And then we lost, political reasons, the girls district setup last year. So we now literally just do all the recreational stuff, and Hampshire Cricket do all the performance stuff. So they get a pot of money from the ECB and sponsorship, and that just sits squarely with them and the performance side. We have the Aegeus Bowl, which is run by Rod Brownsgrove Holdings, And again, the money comes from external sources for that. And then we get our pot of money for the recreational side, and we get that based on our performance from the ECB, and we also get money from Chance to Shine to go into state schools and run state school competitions. And we get money from the Lord Taverners, which is another charity to run our disability stuff and our inner city stuff. So we're quite fragmented. I'd like to say that all counties are the same, are different and work really well together, but all counties have a recreational side and a first class or second class or minor county side. I don't know what the minor counties are called now, I think they've changed the name. And I think I'm not aware of anywhere that runs it absolutely spot on and brilliantly, and so the funding is spread out.
Could be somewhat fragmented.
But
so
the funding we're talking about is not large numbers.
No, I'm sure.
Just
it's
about
not.
any team, probably in Division 1, gets
So I think-
more money than the
It's just so much of our lives these days we hear about the postcode lottery, from everything from health onwards. I just wondered if it's the same sort of setup when it comes to cricket.
A little bit, because my experiences of Surrey tell me that their postcode and their area and their demography is allocated more than the rural county of Hampshire.
And it does come down to numbers. We provide our KPIs every year and we're expected to hit them, and then we get our money, but if we don't hit them, then are the other counties better off? I think we just all run things slightly differently. I think it does make a difference if you're working closely with your county board, and obviously we're first class county, Yorkshire's first class county. Realistically it should be fairly similar, but
Well, we've got one of the girls I coached playing for Yorkshire. You might remember her.
Amelie.
Yes.
Kind of a linked question, why Rwanda? Because clearly there are an awful lot of charities when it comes to the African nations and different sports organisations support different countries. Why was the choice made to be Rwanda? Because funding what you do out there is not a cheap exercise, and it has an awful lot of work and an awful lot of very good work.
So we work with an organisation called Cricket Without Boundaries. They go into 5 African countries. They've also now got a project in Nepal and one in Jordan. Originally, my daughter wanted to take a gap year, and she was going to play semi-pro cricket in Australia, which she did for 2 winters. But before that, she was really keen. I don't know why, because she was painfully shy, but she wanted to put herself through this and go out and volunteer with Cricket Without Boundaries. And I was quite pleased because she chose Botswana, which is really safe. And I thought, great, I've read all the #1 ladies detective agency books, and Botswana's fabulous, and she was going off. But unfortunately, that project fell through, and so she was allocated Rwanda. And of course, for me, the first thing was genocide. And I didn't know very much about it, but she's, don't know where she gets it from, she's incredibly stubborn.
She's a mother's daughter.
So she went out to Rwanda, which actually subsequently, because I've taken children out there, and I had to persuade their parents to let me take the kids out, is the 5th safest country in the world and the most safe country in Africa, which was a relief. But she went out there, she came back absolutely changed. She was 18 years old. She'd been painfully shy. She came back. She'd had to start coaching at 8 in the morning. They weren't finishing till 8 in the evening. She was having to do stuff on her own instead of hiding in my shadow. And it was her contacts really with the team at CWB, who are wonderful and have a similar sort of ethos to me, and the contacts she made with her friends in Rwanda that meant that that link was created. Their boundaries are quite different, so I start to get WhatsApp messages at 4 in the morning from my friends out there, and we talk quite a lot during the day, and we're constantly sharing. We've got several WhatsApp groups. We've got a tour WhatsApp group and a coaching team WhatsApp group where we share coaching tips, and I've got a problem with this, what would you do? And we share little videos. So, and the girls that went out to Rwanda are also talking all the time to their friends that they made out there. And I think it was that connection really that it wasn't a country I knew anything about. I had only ever been to South Africa, but it was their openness and desire to communicate with us as well, I suppose, was really attractive. Yeah.
Interesting, you've had many questions from the ladies, all of whom could play cricket.
I would be quite interested to know, so you talked about your nursing career and then wanting to get into coaching cricket and everything, but what were your opportunities to start playing cricket in the first place?
I didn't start playing cricket till I was in my 40s because there wasn't anything around. My son, I love football, Villa fan, but
Somebody has to be.
I know, there's so few of us and they're all my family.
Says the Lincoln City.
Well. Even at 6, my son was playing football and it had become an all year round sport, and I didn't want that. And my husband had played county cricket, and so we tried to find a club in Frimley that would take him, and there were no clubs anywhere in our local area. We happened to be going to church in Yateley at the time, and we came past Yateley Cricket Club and they were having an open day, and we popped along, and with a bit of persuasion they said that they would take my son at 6. So we started our career at Yateley Cricket Club, and one of his friends had a sister who wanted to play, and she had some friends that wanted to play, and their mum approached me and said they'd like to play, can you do something about it please? So that's how we started the Yateley Women and Girls, and because there was nobody else I ended up being captain and playing. And I had played at home with my dad. I was my dad's son, went to the rugby with him. I tried to set up a girls' cricket team at my all-girls school, which didn't go down very well. I also tried to set up a rugby team at my all-girls school, which went down even less well. So that's how I got into cricket, and by that stage I'd already been nabbed by the head coach at Yateley to coach, so I'd learnt some technical skills. So
there's a theme there, because I got out of the car and got nabbed.
Yeah,
you got away, I'm still there.
So I think it was just an absolute passion for the sport and wanting to play and making it happen for myself and for these other girls, because otherwise there wasn't anything really. So yeah, it was, I'm a bit bloody minded, and I guess the people at Yateley were great. They just allowed me to do stuff and supported me. So it was easy really from that perspective.
And how long did it take before there were enough people playing that you actually were able to start having matches?
I'm up to date. Yateley currently have 2 hardball women's team, softball women's team, and at least 1 team at every age group from under 9 upwards. 3 under 11 playing hardball and softball. Emma started that. I ended up carrying it on when she went on to bigger and better things. But yeah, it takes a long time to build. And we're probably one of the smaller clubs in Hampshire.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't leave for bigger and better things. I left because my daughter was playing county cricket and needed to play men's cricket, and at the time there were no clubs that would take her to play men's cricket to get that standard of play and competition. So we ended up driving down to Winchester for years to play and train, which was fun, but we were going up to Yorkshire, so Winchester's not a big deal.
Why was that? Sorry, why was that? Why wouldn't they take your daughter? Is there a rule, or is it?
There's no rules. It's just people don't think that.
The rule was always, if you're a man, actually, if you're not a woman, you can play in the men's. In fact, anybody can play the men's team. If you're biologically a woman, you always played in the ladies' team, but you could play the men's as well. I don't want to get into P too much. I think the trouble at Yateley at the time was they were playing quite a high standard, and they couldn't see past, does she form part of the best team? Which clearly comes down to opinion.
So she went down to Winchester and opened the bowling and batting for a team that was in the higher division.
Yeah.
But there we go.
It's all about opinions. And
it'd be interesting to see, given the controversy in other sports, what will happen within cricket when transgender
it's a problem already. It's a problem that I've
We have problems in the
face.
games that we do.
and for me, you know, cricket is a game for all. Why wouldn't it be? You know, sport, art, music, anything gives you so much. It enriches lives, but there has to be. The ECB created women's categories to be separate because we aren't there yet. You know, if you look at the standard of cricket in the Hampshire Cricket League, it is improving year on year, but we're nowhere near as good as the men. How many women have played in men's county first teams? Sarah Taylor was going to play. She you know, even an Australian, I can't remember, was it which Australian player it was, but said she was arguably, you know, at least in the top 5 best wicket keepers in the world ever. And she was due to play for Sussex second 11. So there is a difference. We're certainly not at the standard yet in the women's game that, you know, even any of the current women could play Test cricket for England men. So there are categories because there are very clear differences, and I think you need to ensure that from a safety perspective that cricket can be played safely for all, and that has been an issue from a safety perspective. Girls are allowed to play senior cricket from the age of 13. They may come into senior cricket, senior women's cricket, having only just started playing hardball cricket. So to be in a situation where you're suddenly jumping from softball 20 overs, which doesn't take very long, is very quick, to a game where you have to concentrate for 40 overs in the heat, with granny on the boundary waving, dog coming around, you're tired because you've been out on a sleep over the night before, and to concentrate for that length of time playing against people who can hit the ball far harder than women. And I've seen a lot of, I've been involved with cricket at the top level. I personally have concerns about, and I have raised those concerns. So I think cricket can be a game for all. Of course it can. Football can, rugby can, but it has to be safe and enjoyable for everybody.
Any more questions? I think you've... Brilliant. So, let's thank... Is there anything else you want to say? Because you've got a huge list here.
No, I didn't use my notes, which is really unusual for me, and it's just as well because I haven't got my glasses, so I'd have had to be like this.
It's quite interesting because certain, I don't think the heads, they always say, Paul, how did it go so well? How do you know what to ask? Because I do quite a bit of research before, as you would have worked out. And I said, it just happens by accident. We just get some good speakers in. So let's thank Emma in the normal manner, please. At which point we introduce young Tom from the hospice, who will tell us what or what is not going on at the hospice.
Lots of stuff going on at the hospice. Obviously, you guys know that we've been going through starting on our rebuild project to build a new hospice on the site. And the newest news with that is that the keys have been handed over to the demolition company.
I thought you were going to say Paul fell miserably to do a walk because he tore his hamstring.
Yeah, Paul was meant to do a walk, tore his hamstring, and now he can't do it. You're going to do it later.
We'll do it next year.
Yeah, next year. So yeah, the keys have been handed over to the demolition company. Yeah, they've got the board around, so there's no turning back now at this point. We're all moving forward with it. That's fantastic. So if you do want any more information about what it is that we're going to be doing with the new build, please come chat to me or look on our website. All the information's on there as well. The other thing that I wanted to mention as well is that we are A-Plan, so James from A-Plan, who's come here before, some of you might know him, is putting on a networking/quiz evening on the 2nd of November. It's going to be the holiday in Farnborough, so I think it's the same day as we're doing the next one of these as well.
This is
So
Thursday.
if you'd like to support us again in the evening next time as well, please do speak to James and myself and we can get you signed
Have you
up.
seen my diary for a week? That's the reason I look tired come Thursday.
Yeah, but you can have nice black tea and doing some quizzing. But yeah, please do chat to us about that as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.